Chapter 149 The Warrior Wolf. In the dead of the night, Mo Fan's routine was the same as before. He climbed up to the roof of the building as he began to meditate. Meditating for the summoning element was actually a form of feeding. This meditation turned his summoning stardust's magic energy into food to feed his summoned beast. The summoned beast's strength would be able to increase a lot through the absorption of the magic energy that came from the magician's stardust. The speed at which Mo Fan restored his magic energy was relatively fast. The little loach pendant doubling the speed of his cultivation also signified that Mo Fan's magic energy replenished at twice the speed of a normal person. Mo Fan had already reached the third level of the summoning stardust, and so the magic energy that he supplied to the spirit wolf was not small at all. In the past 2 months, Mo Fan had been using all of his magic energy to nurture the spirit wolf every day. However, he didn't discover any clear changes to the spirit wolf. Woo! While Mo Fan was meditating, a sudden howl was transmitted to him through the pact mark that linked him and the wolf. It sounded a bit like a provocation. "This guy is battling again?" Mo Fan murmured, feeling a little stunned. A summoned beast was unable to remain in the normal plane for a long time. They resided in the summoning plane. In that plane, there also existed many challenges which they had to face. In what seemed to be an incomparably infertile land for them, each of the creatures were doing their best to survive. Thus, they continuously had deadly fights with other creatures. Many of the times when Mo Fan summoned the spirit wolf, it would be riddled with scars. The past couple of times gave Mo Fan a new insight into the summoned beasts. In the past, Mo Fan thought the summoned creatures would always be in one place. As long as you'd call them, they would appear, and then use all their strength to fight. In reality, all of the creatures that were called from the different planes had their own lifestyle. The agreement which they had with magicians had the magicians providing them with nourishment from their magic energy, and a bit of strengthening. In return, they would appear and help the magicians battle when they were called upon. In the 2 months Mo Fan had been painstakingly cultivating, the spirit wolf had fought on its home plane more than 10 times. Essentially, it would go back to finding creatures to fight again once it had recovered. To be honest, Mo Fan was actually very worried about the spirit wolf dying in the summoning plane. If that happened, Mo Fan would have to brand yet another spirit wolf. That really took a lot of mental energy. Furthermore, the nourishment which it had received for such a long time would also be wasted. The battles within their plane were not something the magicians could help with. The only thing they could do is meditate, and guarantee they'd be able to provide the beasts with magic energy once their battles were over. The magic energy wasn't just food for their cultivation, but also allowed them to heal up faster. After a while, the spirit wolf's battle finally came to an end. The mental mark had become quite weak. From this, Mo Fan could tell that the spirit wolf was already badly hurt. "Shit! Don't die on me!" Mo Fan was scared. "I've never seen such a warlike summoned beast. Since you're being taken care of by a magician, then why can't you just go find a safe place and be a good wolf?" Mo Fan didn't dare to ponder too much over it. He hastily used the pact mark to transfer magic energy to the spirit wolf, hoping the energy would drag it back from the edge of death. The stardust that was filled with magic energy the color of moonlight quickly darkened. What relieved Mo Fan was the fact the spirit wolf's aura seemed to have recovered a little. "I'll summon you here and bring you to the school infirmary. There'll be healing element teachers who will help you heal up," Mo Fan sent out to the spirit wolf. Mo Fan was now certain that it had received a serious wound. If it didn't get treated in time, it would be in a critical situation. When Mo Fan was about to interlink all of the 7 summoning stars, the spirit wolf transferred a rebuff to him through the mental link. "My wolf brother, if you just heal yourself, who knows how long that will take. If you meet another creature that is hostile to you at this time, you will definitely die," Mo Fan sent anxiously. Not long after, the spirit wolf replied, saying he was hiding in a very safe place. Mo Fan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did he find such a stubborn spirit wolf? It was on the verge of death, yet it was still sitting there waiting for its wounds to self-heal. Mo Fan was worried about the spirit wolf the entire night. The spirit wolf's aura finally stabilized as the sun rose. Mo Fan sent all of his magic energy that he had just regained out to the spirit wolf. The spirit wolf was already in a deep sleep. Perhaps it wouldn't wake up for a long period of time. As long as it's alive. Mo Fan sighed. It seems like there's no hope to obtain the beast refinement blood. it won't be able to battle in this state. The wound the spirit wolf received this time was far too heavy, it would take a long time to recover. In this case, Mo Fan could only give up on the beast battle competition. The day of the welcoming meet was finally here. It was certainly the most majestic event of the Azure campus. The older students who had been in the school for a while would definitely not miss out on this chance to see the new students embarrass themselves. Many of the new students still believed their strength stood out from the others, and were waiting for a good opportunity to take one leap and become the focal point of the entire school. Perhaps every single one of the students here were the best of the best in the areas they had come from. However, in Pearl Institute, they were easily submerged within the piles of magic geniuses. Did you guys ask around about the summoned beasts of the 7 summoner students? Inside the cafeteria, 4 to 5 boys were sitting together and looked as though they were secretly discussing a major issue of some other country. I've asked around. The guy called Hai Dafu has a white armor battle cocoon. Its combat prowess won't lose out against an adult magical beast. Zheng Bingxiao has a rock demon soldier. It's a summoned beast with relatively strong defense and power. And then, there's a bone corpse demon. A guy who looked very excited replied quickly. Bone corpse demon? That kind of thing isn't something you should provoke, one guy nearly yelled out. If you don't want to provoke it, then don't. Either way, there are still some who aren't too hard to deal with, the boy who took lead of the discussion said. And there's one more summoner student called Mo Fan. I have yet to hear about what kind of summoned beast he has. It just happens that he's not in the same room as the other 6, the excited guy said. That doesn't matter. We'll just find something easy. An individual or team that defeats one of the summoned beasts will receive a great reward from the school. Yeah, why else would we go through so much trouble to get intel on the enemy? The reward is not something I, Li Junwei, care about. There's actually that lightning kid who dared to contest against me about my Qin Xiaomian. Oh, Li Junwei, you just happen to like this kind of gentle and obedient girl. I'm not the same as you. I like Miu Nujiao. Shit. Who doesn't like Miu Nujiao? Do you know how many people got a nosebleed from seeing her on the first day? Yeah, that is a supreme goddess. Chapter 150 Supreme Magic. The most heated topic of the day was naturally the beast combat competition in the afternoon. This event had been the most important thing happening at Pearl Institute Azure campus during the past couple of years. There were banners with summoned beasts displayed on them at all corners of the campus. Furthermore, there were rumors that there were large posters of those who had displayed incredible performance in the past competitions still in place on the walls of the entrances to the commons. That sounded really cool. Mo Fan started to sort out his appearance and clothes first thing in the morning. He had to look his best for the lovely ladies. Looking at it from a different angle, the summoner students were also the focal point of the competition this time. His spirit wolf was still sleeping, so Mo Fan thought he had nothing to do here. Originally, this was a chance for him to display his talents and good looks to the entire school, but now he could only show off his incredible handsomeness. Brother Mo Fan, since we're in the same dorm, you should tell me a bit about your summoned beast. Give us something to work on, his dorm mate Zhang Pinggu asked with his eyebrows raised. There's nothing to hide, it's a spirit wolf, Mo Fan replied directly. Beside him was Zhao Manyan, who was also fixing himself up. He turned around as he commented in surprise, a spirit wolf is the favorite beast for primary summoners. Furthermore, that thing's combat prowess is even slightly higher than a minion-level magical beast. So it's a spirit wolf. I reckon we wouldn't be able to win against you even if the entire dorm was to group up, Zhang Pinggu said with a bitter smile. Hee hee. Don't use your standard to determine everyone's prowess. Su Long, the last one to arrive in the dorm, said with a touch of ridicule. There were a total of 5 people in Mo Fan's dorm, and the one he got along best with was Zhao Manyan, who had the bed opposite him. Zhang Pinggu was a pretty shameless guy. He didn't argue with anyone, and was able to banter with anyone. Su Long was the last person to arrive. This guy seemed full of himself. In the beginning, when Zhang Pinggu tried to welcome him, he was given a cold stare in reply, scaring him away. The other 2, Mo Fan still wasn't able to remember their names. Either way, they'd been doing their own thing since the first day of school. They were relatively quiet, and they didn't try to talk to others. Only Zhang Pinggu was relatively familiar with those 2. Mo Fan and Zhao Manyan just acted as though they didn't exist. Good luck, After Zhao Manyan tidied himself up, he patted Mo Fan on his shoulder before leaving. Mo Fan couldn't do anything else other than silently await the tragic welcoming competition. After arriving at the Azure Battlegrounds, Mo Fan and his dorm mates parted ways. The summoner students were the main characters of the competition this time. It was natural that they had to go to the back of the stage to prepare. The Azure Battlegrounds was a huge construction. Inside the place was a space that was a bit bigger than a soccer field. Normally, this place was a grand arena, but today, the arena had already been turned into a colossal cage, called the Beast Battle Cage. Surrounding the Beast Battle Cage were mat seats in the form of ladders. The mats were placed neatly and closely. He estimated that accommodating 10,000 people wouldn't be a problem at all. Perhaps only Pearl Institute was able to construct such a battleground of this size. Students came into the building in succession, the lines starting right after lunch. The tide of people had already started disrupting the grand atmosphere of the building. After 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the entire building was filled with students. Faces filled with vitality and pairs of beautiful white thighs filled with youth. Other than a concert or school, where else could you see such a large group of young girls coming in? Shit, there's a lot of people. I'm feeling nervous, Yang Yi said at the back of the stage, his face filled with worry. As he looked into the arena, there were a multitude of faces they hadn't seen before, and that was only a part of the arena. Seeing this made his heart begin to race. When he was in the middle of the arena, and numerous pairs of eyes were looking at him from all directions, it would definitely make him so nervous that he would forget what element he studied. That's not a problem. I like this kind of situation. Today in the common area, cafeteria, and even on the way to the arena, I had heard people talk about our summoned beasts. There were even a couple of them saying how they'd casually annihilate our summoned beasts. I laughed. My white armor battle cocoon will let them know the definition of complete annihilation. Hai Dafu was definitely excited. Zheng Bingxiao was standing at the side, as calm as always. The other 3 people didn't have much of a reaction. However, from the occasional glow of confidence beaming from their eyes, Mo Fan could tell that they were actually extremely excited about this beast battle competition. The Pearl Institute chose the most elite magicians from the competitions across the nation. If they were able to distinguish themselves in this kind of place, then wouldn't that be enough to prove themselves? Who didn't want to be known for their mettle? Who didn't want to bask in glory during university? As the ceremony began, the first person to make a speech in front of tens of thousands of people was naturally Dean Xiao. Before I make my speech, I want to confirm one thing with everyone. If you aspire to be a magician who wants to be revered in society, with a high salary, and live a high-quality life, then as the person in charge, I am obligated to tell you that you've come to the wrong place. The magicians who graduate from Pearl Institute are bound to have the strength to change the world. They are heroes who protect humanity. If any of you pursue the former, then we will give you the certificate of Pearl Institute and a letter of recommendation right now, and you will be able to live that kind of lifestyle. Please don't take up the precious spots, wealth, and reputation of our Pearl Institute. We don't lack those things. We only lack an eternal heart that pursues the supreme magic. Mo Fan was standing at the back of the stage, not too far away from where Dean Xiao was making his speech. He carefully observed everyone's reactions toward what Dean Xiao had said. Every single one of them had something flickering in their eyes. Those words were quite domineering. In a time where everyone was pursuing reputation and wealth, the dean told the present people that receiving a certificate from Pearl Institute would allow them to obtain all of that. However, the magic students who had been accepted into this kind of nationally reputable magic institution, did they truly only want those things? In front of the supreme magic, all fame and profit was just like floating clouds. Chapter 151 Old Friends, New Acquaintances. Today is the time for you all to demonstrate your own abilities. First, I'd like to introduce the 7 main characters of today. They are the new summoner students. Dean Xiao didn't have much to say, and he didn't let other teachers talk after him. He firmly went right into today's event. Maybe there were a couple of new students holding on to the attitude of laying low in the beginning, and thus not wanting to participate in the beast battle competition this time. However, after they heard that speech, perhaps the majority of them were no longer able to hold on to that same thought. They had won against all of their competitors during their high school magic exams, so why did they have to hold on their tails now? The school won't give those rare resources to you for no reason, especially when you've done nothing. In this institution, you had to compete, harshly compete. The 7 brothers of the gourd Avas walked onto the tall stage under the shouts of the audience. Perhaps there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with this. Why should these summoner students become the focal point of the entire school the second they enter the school? Don't worry, if you defeat them, you'll be the real main characters of today. Dean Xiao declared loudly. The entire arena began to erupt, especially the new students. They were all impatiently wanting to jump onto the stage and fight a war. How come it's you? In the designated seating area for the Earth Elemental students, a sweet and gentle-looking girl was filled with astonishment as she looked towards the summoner students on the stage. Xiaomian, is there anyone you know? Li Junwei, who had shamelessly sat next to her, raised his eyebrow. I guess you can't say that I know him. Qin Xiaomian shook her head. She really didn't. Back when the guy had come to her master's shop to awaken, he probably forgot the appearance of the girl apprentice who was present. However, what Qin Xiaomian was astonished about was that the youth who was recommended by a judge from the magic courts was actually a student at Pearl Institute like her. Master! Qin Xiaomian hurriedly fished out her phone as she sent a text message to her master, Guo Liu. What is it, my apprentice? The awakening master Guo Liu quickly replied. I found the young intermediate magician that came to us for awakening a year ago, precisely the one that was recommended by the magic court. Qin Xiaomian typed her reply very quickly. Where? Aren't you in school? Yes, he is actually one of the new students in Pearl Institute. Furthermore, he seems to be studying the summoning element. Holy crap, this kid only awakened the summoning element a year ago, and he relied on that exact element to enter the Pearl Institute. Guo Liu replied back excitedly. Yes, this person is strong. Then go and get to know him and enter a relationship. Most of the people from the magic courts have an unlimited potential for future prospects. Master, what are you saying? Qin Xiaomian's small face turned red, her mouth began to quiver. All of this was naturally seen by Li Junwei's eyes. Li Junwei's gaze immediately locked onto the only person among the 7 summoner students whom he knew, and his face immediately froze. Qin Xiaomian is my dish. Whoever dares to fight with Li Junwei, about it, will die a painful death. It's him. HMPH. In the same area of the earth element, a boy whose body was clearly a bit chubby immediately turned gloomy. This person was Luo Song. He would never forget Mo Fan's face. However, Luo Song did not want to meddle with Mo Fan due to today's situation. A person who was an intermediate mage like him when they entered the school was definitely a person who was hard to deal with. Luo Song understood that he needed to take it slow with Mo Fan. Furthermore, Luo Song didn't plan on participating in the beast battle competition. If he was to use his true strength, then he could single-handedly annihilate all of the summoned beasts. On the other side of the arena, in the lightning area, a guy with his hair standing up opened his eyes wide. He didn't have a bit of confidence as he looked at the person in the middle of the 7 people on the stage. Xu Jiaoting, what's wrong? A girl sitting next to him couldn't help but ask. Xu Jiaoting? The girl pushed Xu Jiaoting's arm. Xu Jiaoting regained his senses, but the astonishment from before left a hint of dullness on his face. What's wrong? The girl asked worriedly. Nothing, I happened to see my old classmate, Xu Jiaoting replied slowly. Old classmate? Are you saying one of the 7 new summoner students is your old classmate? If that's the case, there shouldn't be a need for you to look as if you lost your soul, the girl told him smartly. You don't know about him, that's why you didn't react like me, Xu Jiaoting answered with a pained face. Then why don't you tell me? Although the summoning element is special, and could be considered the strongest element at the primary level, it doesn't mean that he will definitely be stronger than us in the future. Our lightning element has never been afraid of any other elements, the girl said with pride. Xu Jiaoting shook his head. In that case, when I knew him, he didn't have the summoning element. Didn't have the summoning element? I don't under. The prideful girl suddenly realized something. The expression on her face became the same as Xu Jiaoting's from before, filled with disbelief. You're saying, his main element isn't the summoning element? He is an intermediate magician? Xu Jiaoting nodded, his gaze once again landing on Mo Fan. To be honest, Xu Jiaoting had refused to accept Mo Fan in the past. He had thought of himself as the elite of his entire generation. However, Xu Jiaoting no longer had that kind of mindset. Whether it was the performance Mo Fan had made during the practicals, the display of dual elements at the Mu family, or the calm-headed actions he made during the calamity, they were all things Xu Jiaoting wasn't able to do. And now, Mo Fan had entered the Pearl Institute as a summoner student. Xu Jiaoting really wished that person wasn't Mo Fan. He tried to disbelieve it many times, but after he confirmed it was indeed Mo Fan, Xu Jiaoting had no choice but to accept this incredible thing. Then what element did he have before? I heard that the intermediate magic requires a very complex array of stars in their nebula. Even if someone broke through the intermediate level, it doesn't mean they will be able to use intermediate magic. He shouldn't be able to use the intermediate spells, right? The girl urgently asked. Xu Jiaoting shook his head without replying. Xu Jiaoting didn't want to reveal too many things regarding Mo Fan. Since Mo Fan decided to conceal his other elements and only display his summoning element, he must have his own reasons. If he revealed it, then he would be disrespecting the person who once saved the people of Bo City. The girl noticed that Xu Jiaoting didn't want to talk about the things in the past, and whispered reassuringly, "Since you haven't seen him for more than a year, then his summoning element must have been recent. His strength shouldn't be all that." "Yeah, shouldn't be too strong," Xu Jiaoting agreed, but his voice was unconvinced. Chapter 152 Scheming Battle. Who wants to be first? Dean Xiao looked at the 7 summoner students with a slight smile. "Me. Each one of these people wants to beat our summoned beast for their own reputation. I will make each one of them crawl on the floor." Hai Dafu spoke up, as he did not want to pass his responsibilities on to others. "Then we'll let you have the spot." Hai Dafu strode toward the midpoint of the arena. By the entrance of the cage was a line of people. It stretched quite a ways back. They all seemed very impatient. Hai Dafu's gaze swept past a couple of students standing in the very front, seeing them currently fighting about who was going to go first. "Why don't you dregs come up together so we don't have to waste time? The teachers will count the amount of challengers and add them to our end-of-the-year grades. Why should first and last matter when you are all just numbers?" Fu Dehai didn't try to hide his arrogance, while at the same time, he was completely looking down on the students from other elements. "What did you say, brat? Watch me annihilate your summoned beast with a single move," the young man with dyed blue hair shouted back, clearly displeased. "If your summoned beast can even touch the corner of the clothes of me, the Wind Grand Master, I will acknowledge you as my older brother. I don't accept trash little brothers like you," Hai Dafu shot back in disapproval. Hai Dafu's speech immediately infuriated the 2 guys who were fighting over the first place in line. Soon after, the 4 people at the very front jumped into the cage together with unstoppable anger. "Only 4? That's not even enough to put in between my summoned beast's teeth." Hai Dafu mocked them. Taking a slow step forward, Hai Dafu closed his eyes. A faintly discernible moonlight glow appeared in Hai Dafu's surroundings. At first, it had the radiance of the stars in the sky. They looked as though they were moving according to his wishes. Under the control of Hai Dafu, they quickly assembled into a dimensional star path. The star path split space and opened the tunnel to a different world. A dark, chaotic, and cold aura burst forth like water from the inside of the split space, flowing around Hai Dafu. The dust beneath his feet floated into the air. From the dusky area, you could see a body of steel suddenly appearing from within the crack. Its shoulders, back, and 4 limbs had extremely sharp corners. Its entire body looked like an assembly of weapons that could cut anything. Kai! As a sound was emitted, the dust dispersed. Everyone could finally clearly see the summoned beast. Its triangular head was covered in sharp spikes. Its thick and solid forelimbs, that looked like 2 heavy battle axes, covered its solid keratin armor. The gigantic scorpion's main body was covered in long, visible spikes. Its hind legs weren't as eye-catching as its battle axe front legs, but in place of its toes, there were actually bone scythes. They would cut people who wanted to attack it from behind into 2. White armored battle scorpion. The blue-haired boy's face immediately changed once he saw the summoned beast. The students in Pearl Institute had an extraordinary and vast amount of knowledge beyond their combat prowess. They could instantly recognize what kind of summoned beast was scuttling towards them. However, the knowledge they'd learned from books was only from books. Books and pictures were unable to reproduce the impact of when the creature was standing in front of you. It seems like there really were challengers who came without intel. My white armor soldier is disobedient most of the time. Don't come to me and ask for medical fees when you've lost your arms and legs. Hai Dafu smiled. Chi! The white armored battle scorpion didn't waste any time. It looked at the 4 challengers in front of itself and made its move. Its battle axe-like legs had already been raised. You could feel wind whipping past them when it did. From this alone, they could determine that the white armored battle scorpion's strength was dreadful. Hurry up and disperse, the blue-haired student cried out as he immediately dodged to the side. The wind element magician quickly used wind trails, rapidly distancing himself from the white armored battle scorpion. The other 2 were also escaping. Unfortunately, they were a bit slower, and the white armored battle scorpion's target was precisely them. At this time, it was mainly about who was the slowest to escape. At last, the white armored battle scorpion locked onto a delicate boy who wore his cap on backwards. Its legs churned the wind and turned into battle axes as it ferociously chopped toward the delicate boy. All of the students and teachers couldn't help but take a deep breath. This Hai Dafu really wasn't being lenient. If the scorpion chopped into the boy's head, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive. By the arena, the light element teacher Ji Yuhan's forehead slowly creased. You could see a golden starlight beneath his foot as the white armored battle scorpion was chopping down with its battle axes. Ji Yuhan was the guard teacher today. In order for the beast battle competition to run successfully, he had to save the lives of the students when they were in a life-threatening situation. However, right when he was about to finish the intermediate light magic, he saw an azure starlight flashing around the body of the slender student. Ji Yuhan quickly cancelled his own spellcast. Kong! When the axe forelegs heavily chopped down, people cried out, and a brown rock shield formed in front of the boy suddenly. The gigantic axe leg was deeply lodged onto the rock shield. It looked as though it was stuck in it. Beneath the shield was the delicate boy who had looked so scared that he was about to piss himself a bit ago. However, his eyes were now flashing with a crafty light, and he no longer had the appearance of someone struck by fear. Dazzle, blind! The boy smiled in anticipation. In his hand was a ball of light that he had condensed without anyone noticing. Your summoned beast will definitely be burned at this distance. Encountering me, Xie Wenfeng, can be considered your misfortune. The slender boy raised his hand, and the golden ball that was already in his hands burst forth in front of the white armored battle scorpion. The fierce and blinding light was like swords of light as it burned the white battle armored scorpion's eyes. The white armored battle scorpion already had its eyes closed, but they were forced open under the scorching of the light. Brilliantly done, the blue-haired youngster and the other 2 began to get excited. If Dazzle, blind was used right, it could be a godly spell. It could instantly shut down the sight of the enemy. Even if a magical beast was stronger, as long as it lost its eyesight, it would turn into a waste. Dealing with it afterwards would only be a matter of time. That scheming bastard! Mo Fan raised his eyebrows in astonishment. Truly worthy to be called a student of Pearl Institute. They were on a completely different level compared to the classmates who weren't even able to complete their casting when facing a magical beast. Furthermore, the light elemental boy's usage of the spell was extremely clever. First, he lured the scorpion close, and then used Dazzle, blind at point-blank range. The original primary spell that was considered useless instantly turned into the crucial point of his team's victory. At this moment, Mo Fan couldn't help but get a little excited. If any random student in Pearl Institute had this level of control and response, then fighting them would definitely be extremely exciting.